Joined now by Frank Isola. You can find him at the Frank Isola. We're hanging out. Frank, does any part of you, first of all, thanks for coming on. Secondly, does any part of you wish you were a part of the NBA bubble? Because for all the years that you covered the NBA, if this thing had happened back in 2000 as opposed to now, you might have been there. Or are you perfectly happy to continue to stay at home?
You want me down there tweeting out photos of the meal I'm getting and complaining about life in the bubble? It's not bad enough that we have the players complaining about it. Now we have all the writers down there talking about it. It would be tough to be away that long. I told you, I've done the Olympics twice, man.
Yeah.
You go away for 21 days. That's a long time to be there. Like I think Mark Stein from the New York Times, he said he was going to stay there until some point in September, and then Scott Cacciolo is going to replace him. So they're splitting it up. But to go down there start to finish, that's a long one. That would be tough.
No doubt at all. What's the vibe in New York, by the way? We've asked you this now for months, but do you feel like it's starting to feel normal in your part of New York City area?
Well, it was for a while. Like in New Jersey, they were going to have the restaurants open up where you can sit inside. That wasn't the case. I was all the way out on the east end of Long Island over the weekend, and there was indoor seating at a couple of the places that I was at. It all depends on different places you go to. If you go to a more like a vacation kind of place, it seems like everything is kind of back to normal. But when you're home, it's still. I will say this: you do see even a lot more people wearing masks now than maybe were even like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact reason for that. I always bring a bandana with me, so whenever I pass somebody, I just put it on.
Yeah.
This way people don't get annoyed. And obviously when you go inside, I wear it. But you can tell that I think people here in terms of sports are getting excited because baseball's going to start up. I mean, it seems like baseball's completely fallen off the map.
Yeah.
And, the NBA's starting and the soccer's been going on. So I think people are starting to get a little excited.
I said it is kind of crazy. Baseball is starting 1 week from today. And after all of the attention that the argument got between the players and the owners and everything else, it seems like baseball's basically gone underground as spring training part 2 has been happening. There hasn't been that much discussion. I mean, it's like, okay, well, now they're going to play, and let's move on to something else. And next Thursday, a week from today, we're going to officially have games underway.
Well, you touched on it a bunch of times, the owners and the players kind of being tone deaf as they were going back and forth fighting over money. So they're fighting over money at a time where there's so many people out of work. They could have started July 4th.
Yes.
Both sides should have been focused on that. Because think about it now. They would be playing. They would be into their second or third week of playing. It would be more of a legitimate season. I get it. Is 162 games necessary? Probably not. But a 60-game baseball season is a little silly. It's like playing, 5 NFL regular season games or 30 NBA regular season games. That part of it. I mean, you talk about all these seasons that are going on right now. The NHL trying to end, the NBA trying to finish their season, and how it's going to be a little bit different. But a 60-game baseball season, come on, man, that's a little odd.
We talked to start the show a little bit about NASCAR again, and NASCAR is an example of a sport that has benefited, although not all of it has been positive, but NASCAR has benefited by the amount of attention that they have gotten because there hasn't been a lot of other sports going on. I even watched last night on FS1 some of the race at Bristol, and I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I do think it's a big story that's kind of being not talked about very much. I mean, Frank, they had over 20,000 people in the crowd last night, which is the biggest sports crowd we've seen in America for an event since March. And yet it happened last night, and I saw very few people talking about that number of people being in there watching a live sporting event.
Well, it's funny you say that because last night I was flicking around and there was a USL game on, which is the soccer league that's right below the MLS, and a team in Memphis was playing. I believe it was Birmingham. In fact, the team in Memphis is partly owned by Tim Howard, the former U.S. goalie, who actually was playing goalie for Memphis last night and looked like he was about 60 years old. He was getting destroyed. He was down 3-0 in the first half. There were fans there, and that was in Memphis, that game. I thought it was really interesting. Now, I don't know if it was a sparse crowd because it's a lower-level soccer game or if they were social distancing, but here would be my thing, because if you remember, I think it's Gene Smith, the athletic director of Ohio State, it was more than 6 weeks ago where he talked about wanting to have not only to play football this season, but about having fans in the stadium. He was hoping to maybe have, like what you said, maybe 20, 30,000 fans. Here would be my thing. How do they get into the stadium and out in kind of like a social distance kind of way? Because we've all been to sporting events. It's not, that's part of the biggest pain about going to a game, like the huge crowds you face outside just trying to get in. And then, once the game ends, everyone's getting up at the same time and trying to get out. I'll bet you that would be kind of like the one complication. But we've talked about it. I think these schools like in the SEC, they want fans there. They're going to see what they can do, like to your point, to get maybe 20, 30,000. I don't know if they can pull it off, but I think that's the goal.
Well, I don't understand, and again, somebody can try to explain it to me. I understand on a city basis, like Vanderbilt University, if the city of Nashville is saying, hey, we're not going to allow large gatherings of people, okay, that influences you. Same thing could happen in Knoxville. But absent the city disallowing it, I don't understand how you can have 20 or 30,000 people for a sporting event in Bristol, and you can't have a small crowd or no crowd for an SEC football game at Vanderbilt or at the University of Tennessee. It just, the logic on it doesn't apply. And by the way, let me say this, 877-996-6369. If you were at the Bristol event, maybe we got some people who are listening to us right now who were there. I'm actually curious what the environment was like. Frank just raised a couple of interesting questions about the entrance and I would imagine the exit, as well as like concession stands, things like that. What did it feel like as a fan? 877-996-6369. We will take your call. I'd actually be curious about that in the next segment to hear what your experience was like if you're listening to us right now and you were there last night. Frank, when you look at Major League Baseball coming back, the NBA coming back, one of the big issues with both of those leagues, particularly Major League Baseball, was the negotiation that led to the games themselves. Do you think the NFL is going to be able to get everything worked out as it pertains to players being paid in the NFL, or do you think we might have a messy situation between owners and players as we try to get things ready there?
Yeah, we've seen this song and dance before. The one thing about the players' union, it's the strongest union out of all the major professional sports. It seems like the league can never try to break it or get them to bend a little bit. I think the NFL is a little bit different. I think you have a lot of I think the majority of the rank and file members aren't making the crazy Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady kind of money, and they know their career lifespan is about 3-4 years, and they want to get paid. So I always think that's really difficult for the NFL. I think the league, if they can get the players out there playing, I think a lot of the players are going to be concerned about safety and things like that. I know they're trying to come up with like a special kind of face mask, but when it comes to a CBA, I think the owners always have the players where they want them, because I just think the players are in a different financial position than baseball is. And then basketball, the NBA probably falls in the middle there. But football, it's tough because, come on, Clay, these guys know it's like a 2-3 year deal. They're looking to get their money at when they can, and the last thing they want to do is to hold out and fight anybody over money, because I think in the long run they don't believe they're going to win.
Yeah, we're talking to Frank Isola. Everybody was talking yesterday, and certainly we talked about it on this program, about Dak Prescott and his contract situation with the Dallas Cowboys. Do you think Dak will be the quarterback of the Cowboys next year?
I mean, if he comes back, he signs that other franchise tag, and then his contract will be, I think they said $37.7 million. He's been clearly underpaid, considering you're a starting quarterback in the NFL.
$2.7 million total in first 4 years of his contract.
But, he is 1-2 in the playoffs. And if you go back to the game last year against the Eagles, that was in theory a play-in game, and he didn't play well there. Do I think he's good enough to win a Super Bowl? Yeah, because there's been a lot of good quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. But the idea, just because Patrick Mahomes got this crazy money, Mahomes is a generational talent. I think Dak Prescott is good, but I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that are good. And I just think it just doesn't seem like the Cowboys are convinced. I think if they were convinced, they would have tried to work out a deal. He's going to get crazy money this year, so good for him. He's finally going to get paid. I mean, he was underpaid. Now I guess you can make the case that he was overpaid. I still think a year from now, he'll be the quarterback of the team. I think the Cowboys are in a great position, because not signing him to a long-term deal, I think, is smart from their standpoint, because it's not like Patrick Mahomes. It's not Russell Wilson. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not Tom Brady in his prime. It's Dak Prescott, who's a very good quarterback, not a generational talent, though.
Did the sports media, I bet you read Mitch Albom's column in the Detroit Free Press, taking everybody to task for the way that sports responded to Deshaun Jackson and Steven Jackson. And then yesterday, you might have seen this, we had Dwayne Wade endorsing, at least it appeared, although he later said he didn't mean it, on social media, Nick Cannon, who lost his job for anti-Semitic comments. Has sports media in general given too much of a pass to athletes for all of the anti-Semitic stories that came out last week and that have continued into this week?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Deshaun Jackson, when he said what he said, the NFL clearly got him, the Eagles did, and he's apologized a bunch of times, kind of like what Drew Brees had done, right? And he seems to have handled it, even though what he said was absurd. And is he going to be educated on the matter? Who knows? But I think your point is well taken, and I think Dwayne Wade, anytime that I've dealt with him, I think he's a good guy. I think he's speaking about something which he's probably not that knowledgeable about, and he was even tone deaf in his first kind of clarification that he had, and then he came out with a second clarification. And I would think that Dwayne Wade would be a little bit concerned because he does work for Turner.
Yep.
He's a big personality there, and it's one thing to support. He probably has a relationship with Nick Cannon. You could support him and probably do it privately. I don't
Send
know
him a text message would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and instead you think you're somehow being, I don't know if the word is defiant or if you think you're trying to prove a point to people. And when you said, you keep leading, I mean, come on, Dwayne, look at what he had said. I mean, it was reprehensible, the things that Nick Cannon said. And then, of course, I mean, it seems like Twitter probably went after him more than the media did. But I think a lot of people, especially the NBA media, is probably thinking, well, anytime that we've dealt with Dwayne Wade, he's always been good. Maybe we'll give him a pass on this one. And he did seem contrite. Hey, he plays in Miami. I would think there's a large segment of the season ticket holders down there that are Jewish people in that organization. Or so he's gonna have to answer to a lot of people that he knows. I think at the end of the day, it's probably an embarrassing thing for him.
You mentioned something that I do think is interesting that could be more challenging for athletes, at least in the short term. A lot of times if you deal with a guy face-to-face and you feel like you know him a little bit, like you've been into a lot of locker rooms, you've gotten to know a lot of athletes, you might be more likely, if that guy is a decent dude to you, to give him a little bit of a pass if he does something that's a little bit outside the bounds of acceptable behavior, right? I think that's human nature. When you don't have that face-to-face interaction, that probably becomes less likely, right? And I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out in terms of the coverage of sports in general.
I think you're right. I'll give you an example. Years ago, like one of the first jobs I ever had, I was covering the Mets, and Eddie Murray was on the team. Eddie Murray is like a legendary player, right? But he was a miserable dude, and he sat next to Chico Walker. Chico Walker, who used to tell me way back when, my nephew was a kid in Chicago. His nephew was Antoine Walker. Kept telling me that my nephew is going to become this great player. And I'm like, well, everybody says their nephews are going to be great players. But Eddie Murray was miserable, but he was a great player. I remember being around some of the baseball writers, older baseball writers. They were like, I'm not going to vote him the first time in on the ballot, Hall of Fame ballot, because he was so difficult to deal with. And I remember thinking, all right, I get that, but that's like a little unfair. But it also goes to show you that the interaction that players will have with certain people, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. I think that's probably happened to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he was kind of miserable to a lot of people, not just the media, and he's always kind of been fighting to get back into the league, where other guys that are more accommodating, I think they do kind of get a pass. And Dwayne Wade, if you've ever dealt with him, like, he's very engaging. The first time you meet him, he's going to remember your name the next, 20 times you see him. He's just that kind of guy. So, I think for a lot of these guys like Dwayne Wade, he's probably a little bit bored. His wife is in entertainment, and she got thrown off a show, so maybe he's like his antenna is up because of that. And, he's talking to his buddies, and he's saying, I'm going to go show my support for Nick Cannon without really thinking what he's tweeting and maybe not understanding the full ramifications of it. And to your point, I think I don't think Deshaun Jackson got a break. I think enough people went after Steven Jackson where they were probably kind of rolling their eyes. Dwayne Wade's in a little bit of a different category just because kind of the guy that he's been over the last 20 years in the league.
Last question for you. You're a big soccer guy. You mentioned watching lower-level soccer below the MLS, which I think gives you big-time bona fides. Is Christian Pulisic already the greatest American men's soccer player of all time?
I mean, Landon Donovan, Tab Ramos, Clint Dempsey. I mean, considering how young he is,
yes,
and that he's playing in the Premier, he's not even just that he's playing in the Premier League. Like, you could be on a lower level team in the Premier League. He's on one of the better teams.
And he's dominating right now since the return.
He's been really good. And the thing is, I said this before. Like, we used to send, Tim Howard played there. So, we sent a lot of good goalkeepers over there. Our kids over here grow up in the States playing different sports. Tim Howard played basketball. In fact, I think he might have played basketball in high school with Jay Williams. We've sent defenders over there, big hulking guys that can head the ball. And then, we've even sent strikers over there like Brian McBride, who had the guts to, like, dive for headers, and we always get kicked in the head. But Christian Pulisic, the one thing about him, he has, like, the ability to hold the ball, to be confident with the ball, to take guys on and attack. He's got, like, a little bit more flair to his game. He makes quick decisions. He's fast. I mean, he's got, like, the whole package. You could tell he's been embraced by the Brits. Because over there, they're kind of hard on American players. We're much nicer when the European players come over here. Maybe that wasn't the case like in the NBA 30 years ago. Today, it's a lot different. Over there, they look at, like, Americans like, what do you guys know? You're a bunch of American football players and basketball players. You don't really play this sport. They don't show them the proper respect. But I think that he's starting to get the respect from the coaches and the fans because he's helped them. He's, the last game they played, he had the game-winning assist in the game. A few games before that, he has been scoring important goals. So I think if he's not there right now, I would put him right there with those guys that I mentioned. I think by next season, he will be the best.
And honestly, if you think about it, of everybody that's in American sports right now, I almost would rather buy stock in Pulisic because I think he's going to be just extraordinary given the fact that soccer is blowing up in a good way.
Clay, and also think about this. Think about the marketing opportunities for him because a team like Chelsea is immensely popular in Asia.
Yeah.
And then you have all of Europe covered. Now it's in America. I've already seen just going around, there's kids, all over the place wearing his Chelsea jersey. The money that kid's going to make in endorsements, forget it.
Good deal as always. Good stuff with Frank Isola at the Frank Isola on Twitter.